The New Orleans Saints made their pick at number 9 on day 1 of the NFL draft and got offensive lineman Kelvin Banks out of Texas. Many thought Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, or Tyler Warren could have been picked at number 9 for the New Orleans Saints. But the Saints went with a non-sexy, a not flashy, but a very much needed pick at number 9 at offensive tackle, and we're here to break it down. Whether you're happy about it or upset about it, we're going to talk about it today. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. We're trying to hit 10K this year. Stay up to date with all the draft content. Let me know in the comments what you made of the Kelvin Banks pick. Like the video, support the channel. We're trying to reach our goals this year, and let's dive into it. Okay, so let's get this straight. I'm sure most of you and many of you are disappointed, which I completely understand. The Saints drafted yet another offensive lineman and continue their streak of drafting a lineman in the first round every year since 2014. You wanted to see the Saints draft an exciting playmaker, someone whose jersey you could buy tomorrow, get a receiver or a tight end, a quarterback, running back, corner, safety. You wanted to see something exciting and flashy. But instead, you got yet another offensive lineman. And I get that frustration, but the Saints also needed an offensive tackle. In case you missed this, Saints general manager Mickey Loomis, the day before the draft, announced that the Saints were not picking up Trevor Penning's 5th-year option, which would have been $16.6 million, meaning he's in a contract year set to be a free agent next offseason. Now, this was stupid of him because he basically tipped his hand a little bit in the fact that the Saints were probably in the market for an offensive tackle. Luckily, though, the Saints were able to get their guy Kelvin Banks. So the Saints took Kelvin Banks with the 9th overall pick, and some people think this is a horrible pick, which is crazy in my opinion. I think this is a good selection. And I'm not BSing, I'm not bullshitting. I literally have my live reaction to the pick on my stream from yesterday. You can go check it out if you want. I was happy with this pick when it happened. I think it's dumb to say Kelvin Banks was a bad pick when the guy simply hasn't played one snap yet. Now, you could say it's dumb to call him a good pick when he hasn't played one snap either, but on paper this pick is more good than it is bad, and I don't even think it's even close. Kelvin Banks was a consensus top 10 pick most places that I saw doing mock drafts, ESPN, NFL Network. He was a guy who a lot of teams and places had going in the top 10, sometimes in the top 15. It wasn't like the Saints reached for him, and it wasn't like they picked a guy who wasn't supposed to go in the first round. This guy was supposed to go in the first round. You can't call that a bad pick. Will he be a good or bad player? We won't know until later down the line. But this is not like when the Saints drafted Trevor Penning. Kelvin Banks is not a raw talent who needs to be developed and needs time to be good, and was from a small school going up against small school talent. Kelvin Banks is a guy who is legit. He has talent. He's played against the competition. Could he use some development? Yes, but he's a guy who could play left tackle for the team day 1. And going through some of his stats and numbers through college, it's pretty damn impressive. For example, over the past 2 seasons in college football, 2024 and 2023, Kelvin Banks had 1,043 pass blocking snaps and allowed 2 sacks. That's 1 sack damn near every 500 passing plays. That's ridiculous. He allowed 3 quarterback hits, 2 of them being the sacks, and he allowed a 2.1 pressure rate allowed. That is freaking ridiculous. Trevor Penning was not putting up numbers like this. Kelvin Banks is going against better competition. If you look at this and you don't think, okay, maybe this guy could work out or this could possibly be a good pick for the Saints, I don't know what to tell you. This is a good pick right here. He allowed less pressures last season than the tackle who went 4th overall. Every FBS offensive lineman that allowed fewer pressures than Will Campbell last season, Kelvin Banks, 10. 10 pressures last season. 10 pressures and 1 sack allowed in 2024 on 500 and something passing plays. How could you not be at least like, okay, this is a good pick? There is more positives here from Kelvin Banks than there are negatives, and I think the offensive line glasses is kind of blocking that for some of you, and I totally get it. I mean, it's disappointing having to take another lineman because the Trevor Penning one went completely sideways. But Kelvin Banks is a guy who could possibly be the foundation for the Saints offensive line and left tackle for years to come if that pick ends up working out. So those are some of the on the field stuff, but he's also been awarded for his on the field play. who is the Outland Trophy winner in 24, the Lombardi Award winner in 2024, Jacobs Blocking Trophy in 2024, unanimous All-American in 2024, second team All-American in 2023, first team All-SEC 2024, first team All-Big 12 23, second team All-Big 12 2022. There's a ridiculous resume here from Kelvin Banks, pointing to him being a good player and a guy who I think a lot of teams overthought and probably fell a little bit back than he probably should have. I would have taken him over Membu. So I think the Saints at least got on paper a really good tackle at pick 9. And here's another impressive stat for you. Kelvin Banks had 9 games this past season against defensive lines that were among the 25 highest graded in the Pac-4. I think that's what P4 stands for. In those games, I mean, PFF grades, take them for what you want, 83.7 and an 85.6 pass blocking grade, but allowed 2.2% pressure rate against some of the best defensive lines in college football. The dude is obviously a beast and a stud on the offensive line. Don't let your bias and hatred towards Mickey Loomis and them drafting linemen for 10 straight years blind you from the fact that this dude's a stud. Okay, so we've gone through some stats, we've seen some numbers. It looks impressive, but sometimes stats don't tell the whole story. They can say one thing, but the film could say another. Hell, Derek Carr's numbers and stats look pretty decent, but it doesn't align with the film. Well, Kelvin Banks' stats and numbers align with the film. This is my favorite clip from Kelvin Banks. He just completely demolishes the defender right here. Here he is on the left side, pulling and just crushes the defensive back. Why don't we put this in slow motion? Let's put this playback speed at 0.25. Let me see. Banks just completely crushed this dude. There he is. He's pulling. Boom. Just completely decks this guy. And then we get another angle of it over here. What a block. I don't know if he scored on that play, but man, was that an excellent block right there from Kelvin Banks. Here's some additional plays that we got of Kelvin Banks in some of his film. You're gonna have the arrow above him right here. He's the left tackle. He has a nice run block over there. Blocks the guy towards the interior. Down blocking, that's really good. Here he is on the left side. Really good job here picking up the stunt. He's originally blocking the edge rusher, but then they stunt. The defensive tackle comes over and he picks that up very well. That's a great rep from Kelvin Banks. Let's see what the next rep has for us. Don't like this angle. Kind of hard to see. But he blocks his edge defender into the backfield, and then gets out there in the open field, and then he blocks the safety out of the way for his running back. Now, he's not the most athletic guy. The Saints typically like their offensive tackles who can get out into open space and be athletic, kind of like Teron Armstead. And Talise Fuaga was kind of an athlete. Kelvin Banks is not as athletic, but his technique is really good. He's more polished. He's not an athlete, but he's good at what he does. Here he is again on the left side, blocking, gives his guy time to throw the ball downfield. You get the idea, and I'm sure I'll be playing more footage of Kelvin Banks throughout the video than just what I'm showing right here. The guy is good at what he does, and the Saints needed a tackle. Now for the Saints, this likely means Kelvin Banks will be the team's starting left tackle. Although he can play left guard, I would assume left tackle is where he ends up playing for the Saints. Talise Fuaga will likely move back to right tackle, which was his more natural position coming out of college, meaning Trevor Penning, who's in a contract year and will be a free agent next offseason, will likely compete for a job on the Saints offensive line at guard, and we'll see if that can work. Hopefully it does, and they can have a pretty solid offensive line. But the Saints' foundation at offensive line could be set if Kelvin Banks ends up hitting. You potentially have 2 bookend offensive tackles and a really good center when healthy who could potentially be an all-pro and is arguably your best player on the roster right now. If they can produce, your offensive line is your identity, kind of like the Eagles. If Banks, Eric McCoy, and Fuaga can stay healthy and produce, there's your identity as a team. They would be a team that wins in the trenches, and that will make life for whoever is at quarterback easier. They'll have better pass protection, giving the quarterback more time to throw the ball and not feel as much pressure. They'll also have a better running game, which would make the quarterback's life easier. They won't have to throw the ball as much because the offensive line would be run blocking really well. And given where the Saints quarterback situation is right now, they don't know who their quarterback is going to be this year. So getting these 3 guys producing and being the foundation of your team is really important. That could mean Spencer Rattler's at quarterback, or a rookie, or even Derek Carr for what it's worth. These guys are going to be the tone setters for what they do. Kellen Moore was even asked about who Kelvin Banks will be blocking for at the quarterback position, and he just said, we'll let that process kind of play out. He didn't want to give an answer to that, and I think the Saints are looking to add a quarterback at some point in the draft if the right guy falls to them. But who knows, maybe he'll be blocking for this guy in the upcoming future, Arch Manning, who posted on his story that Kelvin Banks got drafted and said Nola's getting a good one and tagged Kelvin Banks. Not really important, but I just thought I'd throw that in here. Kellen Moore all offseason has said his philosophy for building a team and building a foundation would be through the trenches because that's where games are won and lost. Mickey Loomis and the Saints have had this philosophy forever, and that's exactly what they did. Not flashy, not sexy, but very much needed. And if it works out, it sets a foundation for the future. Okay, so day 2 of the NFL draft is today, and the Saints have the 40th overall pick. Kellen Moore did not give any input as to whether or not the Saints were trying to trade up, but I'm pretty certain they at least gave it a try and had some calls about it. And I'm glad that they did not trade up because they need to use as many picks as possible and use as many resources as possible to hit on these draft picks, and to add as many young talented players to the roster as they can. Some guys available for the Saints today on day 2. Shedeur Sanders, I think, is going to be gone to the Cleveland Browns with that first pick. I don't think that's happening. I know some of you probably wanted them to trade up back into the first round to take him, but the Saints are not going to be taking Shedeur, in my opinion. I think he's going to Cleveland. I think if there's a quarterback they take, Tyler Shuck would be the guy they go for. That's just my opinion. But looking at this list here, the Saints need a cornerback. They could use Trey Amos, Siobhan Revel. Will Johnson's interesting. There's some health concerns there, but the dude is pretty damn good when he's on the field. That 40-yard dash thing doesn't help either. I'd like to see the Saints add a playmaker. Getting a Jaden Higgins or a Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Mason Taylor out of LSU would be cool. Hell, even adding a running back would be cool. Then you have an identity. You want to be a team that runs the ball effectively. Any of these guys I kind of be happy with. Again, they could maybe add another defensive lineman and Mike Green. Maybe they draft a guard. I don't really know. But these are just some of the top guys available going into day 2. Overall, on paper, the Saints got a good pick at number 9 in Kelvin Banks. Like I said, it wasn't sexy, it wasn't flashy, it wasn't very exciting, but it's one I can definitely get on board with, and I like it. But let's hope the Saints do make some splashy moves on day 2, like drafting a receiver, a corner, running back, or something like that. Hell, even maybe a quarterback. Let me know what you make of the Kelvin Banks selection down in the comments, what they should do on day 2. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, help support the channel. My name's Kaj, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Peace.